She said I was lucky to live there rent-free. Then I found a hidden file with my name on the deed. "You were supposed to make me proud," she whispered as the IRS pulled into her driveway. "If you think you own this house just because you paid a few bills, think again. No one helped me keep it, especially not you." That's what my Aunt Harriet said to me, loudly, in front of 12 relatives and a neighbor I didn't even know. And I just stood there, mouth dry, hands full of grocery bags I'd bought with my own money, for a fridge I'd filled for over a year, in a house where I paid every water bill, every electric charge, every overdue property tax. And I stood there like an intruder. Let me back up. My name's Jace. I'm 32. I work in software, and after years of burning myself out in the city, I moved back to my hometown when my aunt offered me the upstairs guest room, for as long as you need. I had just gotten out of a draining relationship, and I was broke from hospital bills my insurance barely touched. Harriet was family, and she had raised me for 2 years after my mom died when I was 13. So when she opened her arms, I walked right into them. At first, it felt like home. She made lasagna the first night I moved in, pulled out old photo albums, even left a mug on the counter with my name on it. "I never stopped thinking of you as mine," she said. So I helped. I got the Wi-Fi fixed. I paid off the overdue gas bill. When the roof leaked in March, I found a contractor and paid half up front. No contracts, no expectations. I thought that's what family did. But something shifted after 6 months. Harriet stopped saying thank you. Started leaving notes instead of speaking. Passive-aggressive post-its like, "Please don't use the washing machine after 8 p.m. It spikes the bill." Or, "I noticed you had steak. Try to be more budget-conscious next time." Still, I ignored the signs. I thought maybe she was just stressed. She worked part-time at the local library and had chronic joint pain. Maybe she felt ashamed that I was helping so much. I tried to give her space. Even increased the amount I pitched in. Automated the utilities under my name so she wouldn't worry. Then came the barbecue. It was her birthday, and she insisted on hosting it in the backyard. "Nothing fancy, just family," she said. But I ended up funding nearly everything. Groceries, decorations, even renting a canopy when the forecast showed rain. She asked me to handle the grill while she mingled. I didn't mind. I was used to being in the background. That's kind of who I am. People showed up in waves, uncles, cousins, old friends. Everyone laughed, complimented the food, said how great the house looked. Harriet nodded proudly every time and said the same thing. "You know, I've kept this place going for 20 years. Just me. No help. No man. Just me." I flinched every time. One of my cousins said, "Didn't Jace pay off the back taxes last year?" And Harriet waved her hand. "Oh, that was just a loan. I would have figured it out." "A loan?" She cried when I gave her that check. Said it saved the house. I stood behind the grill, tongs shaking in my hand, trying to breathe. But it got worse. Around sunset, her granddaughter, a girl named Brooke, who was always sweet to me, came up to me, biting into a cupcake. "My grandma says you act like you own the house just because you're scared of being alone. But it's not even your house. You're just a guest." I froze. She skipped off before I could even process what she'd said. The cupcake wrapper fluttered to the ground like punctuation. And that's when I went inside. I told Harriet I was heading out to pick up some ice. I needed the excuse. I needed air. When I came back, I walked into a conversation. She didn't hear me enter. She was on the phone, laughing. "Yeah, he thinks I owe him something. He acts like this place would fall apart without him. Please, I've managed just fine without a man before. I can do it again." I stepped into the kitchen. She turned, startled, her smile faltering for just a second. Then she waved it off. "Oh, I didn't hear you. Everything okay?" I nodded. Because that's what I always did. I nodded and swallowed every damn insult. But something broke that night. Later, as I cleaned the kitchen alone while she drank wine on the porch with her friends, I looked around at all the things I had paid for. Appliances, pantry stock, even the light bulbs. I opened the drawer where she kept the house documents and saw a stack of unopened mail. One envelope was from the county clerk. It was a refinance approval. Her name only. A second mortgage using the equity I helped preserve. There was a sticky note attached. "Used for kitchen remodel. He'll probably offer to help again." That was the moment I realized. This wasn't home. It was a setup. And I'd been played. But I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I did something worse. I smiled. And that's when the plan started forming. I would leave. But not quietly. Not without making sure she understood what it felt like to be erased. And the first step? Turning off the switch no one thought I had control over. I didn't leave that night. Not yet. I needed more than an exit. I needed a reckoning. For a week, I played my part. I took out the trash, washed dishes, paid the $164 water bill without a word. I smiled when Harriet walked past me in her fluffy pink robe, the same one I bought for her last Christmas. I nodded when she left another post-it on the microwave about using her kitchen too often. She had no idea. None of them did. That weekend, she invited some of the family over again. Just a casual brunch, she said. I made waffles because of course I did. I poured orange juice into glasses I paid for, in a house I kept running, while she sat at the head of the table like a queen who'd forgotten who built the damn castle. And then she said it again. I've done everything on my own. Always have. Some people just don't understand what that kind of strength takes. The table laughed politely. My uncle nodded. My cousin chewed slowly and said, "It's true, Harriet. You're the most independent person I know." I don't know what hurt more, the lie or how easily everyone accepted it. After brunch, while she was in the backyard showing off the garden I landscaped, I went upstairs to pack. Not everything, just enough. 2 changes of clothes, my hard drive. The blue mug she said was mine, but clearly wasn't. I left the rest. Let her keep the things she believed defined her power. But before I walked out, I left something else. On the dining table, right next to her half-finished crossword puzzle, I placed a sealed manila envelope. Inside were printed bank statements, screenshots of every transfer I made, copies of text messages where she asked for a little help just until payday. And at the top, one line I wrote in thick black marker. You said you did it alone. This is your chance to prove it. Then I walked out. Quiet. No goodbye. No one noticed. Of course they didn't. I moved into a tiny sublet apartment on the east side of town. It smelled like mildew and curry, but it was mine. I slept better than I had in months. No post-its. No passive-aggressive sighs when I used the hot water too long. No whispers behind my back. The first call came that night. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Then the texts. Harriet, did you take my files? Harriet, why would you do this? Harriet, you're being dramatic. We can talk? I didn't reply. The next morning, my email inbox was flooded. She'd sent copies of my own files back to me with notes like, "This is your version of the truth," and "You sound like a victim." And that was when it hit me. She truly believed she hadn't done anything wrong. Not even a flicker of guilt. Not even after the entire family saw that envelope when they came by for dinner. Because yes, she tried to throw it away. But she forgot to shred it. And someone, my cousin Elise probably, took photos, passed it around. Suddenly I wasn't invisible anymore. But that didn't bring comfort, just more chaos. My cousin Jack called me. "What's going on, man? She said you stole money from her." Stole? She told everyone you took out a second mortgage in her name, he added. That was the twist. She flipped it. Claimed I'd manipulated her, used my tech background to hijack her bank accounts, that I emotionally pressured her into accepting money just so I could hold it over her head. And they believed her. Not all, but enough. Enough to make me feel like the floor dropped out from under me. Again. I didn't defend myself. I didn't make a scene. I just sat in my new apartment, the walls still bare, staring at my phone while my screen lit up with false accusations and cold silences. I was tired of defending my existence. So, I logged into my cloud storage and created a single folder labeled "If You're Curious." I filled it with receipts, logs, emails, every payment I ever made, every lie I had tucked away quietly for months. Then I sent the link to one person, Elise. No caption, just the link. Hours passed, no response. And then Elise. She's been lying about everything. I didn't smile. I didn't feel vindicated, just empty. But I knew what would come next. That evening, a knock on my door. I didn't have to look through the peephole. I knew the rhythm, the hesitation between knocks. It was Harriet. I opened the door. She looked tired. Not old. She always prided herself on aging with grace, but worn. As if something inside her cracked and she didn't know how to seal it. "Jace," she said. Her voice trembled, not from emotion, but from rage being swallowed. "You humiliated me." I said nothing. She stepped forward. "You think this makes you powerful? Ruining your own family?" "I didn't ruin anything," I said quietly. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. Her jaw clenched. "I took you in, when no one else did. You were pathetic when you showed up." "I was grieving," I replied. "And you saw an opportunity." Her hand trembled as she pointed at me. "You're ungrateful, selfish, a coward." I tilted my head. "Then why are you here?" She didn't answer, just stared, waiting for me to flinch, to break, to apologize. But I didn't. I reached behind the door and handed her a small envelope. She hesitated, then snatched it. Inside was a single photo, us, from my first night back at the house, standing in front of the fridge I had just stocked. We looked like family. But if you looked closer, you'd see it. My forced smile. Her tight grip on my shoulder. The tension buried beneath false warmth. On the back of the photo I wrote, "I didn't leave a mess. I left a mirror." She read it, and for the first time in my life, Harriet had nothing to say. She turned and walked down the hallway, and I watched, wondering not if she'd come back. But what would happen when the rest of them looked in that same mirror? My Uncle Ron always said family was everything. He used to tell me that over greasy diner breakfasts he insisted on paying for, even though I later found out they were billed to a shared family credit line I never agreed to. But back then, I believed him. After my dad passed and my mom started drifting into her own grief, Uncle Ron stepped in, took me fishing, helped with my first resume, moved me into his rental when I couldn't afford school housing. So when I found out he was going in for back surgery last year, I dropped everything, left my city job, came back home. He said he needed someone to keep the house running. Said I could crash in the guest room, maybe even take over the mortgage later. I thought that meant he trusted me. Turns out it meant he was grooming me. The surgery went fine, but recovery dragged. Months passed. I paid the bills, cleaned the gutters, drove him to follow-ups, cooked every damn meal. He'd complain when I didn't season the meat like your aunt used to. He'd ask for help logging into accounts. His banking, his retirement stuff. I never thought twice. Until I did. It started with a bank statement. I found it by accident, stuffed behind a cereal box. I wasn't snooping, I was cleaning. But the numbers caught my eye. His name, my social. $23,000 line of credit. Opened 6 weeks ago. The air left my lungs. I read it twice. Then 3 more times. I thought it was a mistake. Maybe some bank error. Maybe he put me down as an emergency contact and they messed up the form. But the next day, when I checked my own credit, I saw it. Not 1, but 3 open accounts. All under my name. All maxed out. And all paying off bills from his old construction business. One that hadn't been active in over a decade. I sat on the front steps, holding the printed reports and shaking hands. When he came outside, leaning on his cane, sipping coffee from the mug I gave him for Father's Day, I didn't say anything. I just showed him the papers. He looked at them, blinked. And then he said, "You're young. You've got time to fix your credit." I didn't. I think my heart stopped beating. "What?" I whispered. He waved a hand. "It's just temporary. I needed the float. You're always talking about wanting to build something. Consider this your down payment." Down payment. Like I was buying into his mess. I packed that night. But I didn't leave. Not yet. I wanted the truth first. So I waited until he fell asleep, and I went into his office. The room I'd cleaned 100 times without ever touching the locked drawer. But this time I had the key. He always kept it under his 3rd whiskey bottle on the shelf. I used to think he was forgetful. Now I think he just got careless. Inside were folders, dozens, labeled with names I recognized, family, friends, neighbors, and mine. Inside mine, tax filings I never signed, copies of my driver's license, a forged W-2. He hadn't just borrowed my credit. He'd been using my identity. For years. My hands went cold. I sat on the floor, surrounded by papers, hearing my blood pound in my ears. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even cry. I just stared at the ceiling, counting how many times he'd called me like a son. The next morning, I confronted him. He didn't deny it, didn't flinch. "Do you know how many people would kill for what I gave you?" He snapped. "A roof, a name, a chance. You act like I owe you something." I laughed. It sounded like choking. "You don't owe me," I said, "but you stole from me. From me." He shrugged. "You'll get over it. You always do." That was the moment something shifted. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just told him I needed to go clear my head. Instead, I drove straight to the county records office, and what I found there made everything else feel small. The house I was living in? It wasn't his. It had been transferred to me 2 months ago, quietly, legally, under my name. He had filed the transfer as a family trust gift, claimed it would help with his benefits application, but it meant every loan he opened under my identity, every lien, every risk, was now tied to my property. I wasn't just being used. I was being set up to fail. I went home, parked in the driveway, sat there until the sun dipped below the roofline. Then I walked inside. He was watching TV, legs propped up like nothing had happened. "You planning to cook tonight?" he asked. I didn't answer. I placed a single sheet of paper on the table. It was a formal eviction notice. His eyes widened. "You're kidding." "I'm not," I said, voice flat. "You transferred the deed. It's mine. You forged my name, you stole my identity, and now I'm cleaning it up." "You can't do this," he said, rising to his feet. "I raised you. You're nothing without me." "No," I said, gripping the doorknob. "I was nothing because of you." And then I left. I stayed at a motel for a few nights, got legal help, started the slow, humiliating process of fixing my credit, of undoing what he built on top of me. It's been 3 weeks. I haven't heard from him, but the damage still echoes. In job applications I don't pass. In loans I can't apply for. In moments where I reach for trust and find only rot. Some nights I wonder if he ever cared. If he ever saw me as anything other than a second chance at his own failed life. And the worst part? I still miss him. That's the thing they don't tell you about betrayal. It doesn't erase love. It just buries it under a weight you can't lift alone. If you've been through something like this, if someone you trusted used you like a resource, not a person, I just want you to know. You're not weak. You're not crazy. You're not alone. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who once held us closest. And sometimes they were never really holding us at all. There's a point when the pain turns into something else. Not sadness, not even rage, just clarity. Cold, sharp, dangerous. That's what I felt the morning I walked out of that house for the last time. After everything Harriet had done, after using me, mocking me, rewriting the truth like I was some footnote in her perfect little narrative, I realized something. She thought I was weak because I was quiet, because I helped without question, because I never raised my voice. She thought I would break. She didn't realize I was just getting started. I spent 2 days in a small rental studio, mattress on the floor, a folding chair and a lamp. I didn't unpack. I didn't eat much. I just stared at my laptop, going through every transaction, every document, every request she ever made. And I made a list. A long, detailed list of every way she had entangled me into her life. Financially, legally, emotionally. Every bill I paid. Every shared account she casually set up. Every message that could be read in one way, but meant something entirely different if you knew the full picture. It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was balance. It was truth. First, I contacted the utility companies, explained the situation calmly and firmly, with documentation, screenshots, call logs. Within 48 hours, everything in that house was no longer tied to me. Electric, gas, internet. All canceled. No notice. No transfer. Then I called the mortgage company. The refinance Harriet had applied for under her name, based on the equity I helped build with my money. I submitted a formal challenge. Turns out, when you've made direct payments toward a mortgage and can prove financial contribution over an extended period, it opens up legal complications. She didn't see that coming. Next was the community board. Harriet lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood where reputation was everything. The kind of place where people sent holiday cards to their dogs and held block cleanup events just to gossip. I sent a respectful but firm statement to the HOA outlining why I was no longer at the property and that I held no responsibility for any future community obligations. Why? Because I knew what was coming. And I wanted it on record that I was out before things fell apart. And then came the most calculated move I've ever made. I contacted my cousin Elise, the only one who had ever whispered, "I don't like the way she talks about you when you're not around." Elise wasn't perfect, but she knew Harriet better than anyone. And she hated hypocrisy. So I sent her a Dropbox folder, everything. The bank transfers, the Post-it notes, audio recordings, yes, I had those too, of Harriet admitting she let me pay because men need to feel useful. It wasn't a public expose. Not yet. Just a warning shot. And Elise? She took the bait. Within 3 days, I started hearing things. Harriet had blown up at Sunday brunch, accusing Elise of siding with a traitor. She'd screamed in front of the family, then cried, then claimed I had stolen from her. But the story was slipping. Too many people had seen too much. Then it happened. I got a call from a lawyer, a calm, polite woman who introduced herself as someone representing Harriet. "She's requesting that you remove any online statements you've made about her," the woman said. I blinked. I haven't posted anything. "Regardless," she continued, She feels defamed by the emails you sent to your family. She's considering pursuing damages. I paused, then asked, does she want to go to court? There was a long silence. Then, we're willing to discuss settlement options, if you are. That's when it clicked. She wasn't trying to clear her name. She was trying to get ahead of something. I played along. Sure, I said. Let's meet. We agreed on neutral ground, a local mediation office near downtown. I walked in with nothing but a folder and a flash drive. Harriet was already there, in full makeup, blazer crisp, eyes cold. She didn't look at me, just sat stiffly, her attorney whispering into her ear. When we got into the room, the lawyer laid out her offer. Remove the email trail, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and Harriet would pay me $2,000 for the confusion and inconvenience. I didn't even blink. I opened my folder, laid down copies of the refinance documents, the fake signatures, the transfer of utilities, the tax records where she listed me as a dependent, without telling me. Then I handed the flash drive to the mediator. It's all here, I said calmly. A pattern of financial abuse, manipulation, exploitation. Harriet's face turned gray. You're bluffing, she spat. I leaned forward. Try me. The mediator looked uncomfortable. The lawyer looked worried. And then I dropped the real bomb. I've already submitted everything to the IRS. Harriet gasped. Her lawyer turned to her sharply. What did he submit? I stood, calmly collecting my folder. I'm not interested in a settlement, I said. I'm interested in being done. I left her sitting there, and I wish I could say I felt triumphant. But what I felt was better. Peace, clarity, freedom. That night, I turned off my phone, walked to the park, sat on a bench under a quiet sky, the kind of sky that doesn't demand anything from you. And that's when I saw the email come in. Subject: regarding the audit of Ms. Harriet Langston, confirmation of receipt. She was being investigated, not by me, by the federal government. All I had done was tell the truth. The system did the rest. She wanted a battle. What she got was exposure. And maybe that's the twist of it all. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't fire or fury. It's documentation. It's the paper trail. It's proving once and for all that the silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. And to anyone reading this, if you've ever been the quiet one, the helper, the person others assumed would never fight back, just know, you're not alone. You're not weak for taking your time. You're just loading the truth. And when it hits, it's louder than anything they ever shouted at you. It took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of waiting, of checking the mailbox every morning with a racing heart, of wondering if maybe I'd gone too far, or not far enough. Then one morning, a letter arrived. Plain envelope, no return address. But I knew. The seal on the back said everything. Office of the Inspector General. Inside, a single-page update. Ms. Harriet Langston is currently under formal audit and investigation for multiple discrepancies in personal tax filings, misuse of dependent status, and suspected financial misrepresentation. It was happening. She'd tried to intimidate me into silence, tried to paint me as ungrateful, unstable, vindictive. But the truth had weight. And it finally pressed down where it needed to. Harriet didn't go quietly, of course. For days afterward, she called, left voicemails full of venom. You ruined your own blood, she hissed. I gave you everything and you turned on me. But the last one was different. She sounded small. I lost the board seat, she whispered. The HOA removed me. I had to step down from the library board. They said it was too controversial now. They won't even return my calls. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I didn't want revenge. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted her to see what she did, and what it cost. And she did. Because weeks later, when I walked past the old house, I saw the sign in the yard. For sale. By owner. Price to move. The bushes were overgrown. The porch light was broken. It looked like what it had become. A house without foundation. Just like the stories she used to tell. I stopped across the street. Stared at the windows. Wondered if she was inside. Watching. If she was waiting for me to knock. To forgive. To forget. But I didn't. I turned and walked away. 2 days later, I got a text from Elise. She moved out. Left town. No one knows where. Did she say anything? I replied. Just one thing. He was supposed to be my legacy. That was the last I heard of her. No apologies. No accountability. Just that final, bitter line. But I wasn't her legacy. I was her reckoning. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for walking away. Because I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't lost in someone else's story. I had written my own. And justice? It didn't come with handcuffs or headlines. It came with distance. With proof. With the steady, quiet power of someone who finally says, no more. And if you've ever been made to feel like silence is your only option, let me say this. Your story doesn't end there. It can begin the moment you decide it's yours again. I learned that closure isn't about watching them fall. It's about standing tall without needing them to look up. And justice? It doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it just needs to arrive. If you've ever been in a situation where someone twisted love into leverage, I hope you'll share your story too, in the comments or wherever feels safe. And if you want more real stories like this, I hope you'll stick around. Some of us are still learning how to heal, but we don't have to do it alone.